Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope all of you are having a wonderful day as we kick things off here on the show with, well, I'm really excited for our guest today because we have the one, the only Yamaha, and we are going to be talking about, they make a lot of different instruments. We would be here for hours upon hours talking about their full catalog, so instead, we are going to be focused primarily on their drum kits. But yes, that's right, we're Computer America, not Music America. There is a technology tie-in. Well, they've done a really good job of reproducing a drum kit, but made it digital. And that's something that, Yamaha has been on the show, recently to talk about their digital pianos, their digital keyboards, and now their drums. They do a lot of great work in making it so that, hey, if you want to practice the drums, you don't have to run your neighbors out of town. Instead, these are very, very high tech, and looking forward to talking all about that. So, but before we jump in with Yamaha, a few things to mention, including computeramerica.com. That will have everything, including the show notes, any links, articles, links to our guest website, links to any videos or products, all of that. So if you're driving, if you are working out, if you are working, it doesn't matter. We have you covered right there at computeramerica.com. The second thing is, of course, the live video stream where you can watch Computer America. And that's going to actually come in handy for today's show because, as we go through, we'll probably be poking through the video gallery that Yamaha has up on their website so that we'll be able to see these drum kits and not just talk about them. And the last thing is, of course, the contest. And there's like 8 different ways to enter, all social media related, and you too could win a prize from our friends over at Logitech, and we could be reading your name live on the air here this Friday as we give away yet another prize, once again from Logitech. All right, so now with all that said, and again, thank you so much for tuning into Computer America. For all of you newcomers, welcome, and for all of you old returning veterans, well, I think you're really going to like today because, again, we have Yamaha and the U.S. Arm of Yamaha, and here to join us and talk about all their products is the one, the only, Mr. Steven Fisher, who is the product marketing manager for the Acoustic and DTX drums. So, Steven, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely, Ben. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. And like I said, this is not the first time that we've had Yamaha on. We've talked about a lot of their other, instruments. And I think when people hear the name Yamaha, like depending on which lifestyle you kind of come from, you think a lot of different things. If you come from the sporting world, you think of things like jet skis and ATVs and things like that. And if you come from the musical world, you think pianos or drums and things like that. I mean, Yamaha does have a lot of different products. So let's talk about your background and how you got involved with the music division of Yamaha. Where'd you come from?
Yes, thanks, Ben. Yeah, actually, I grew up. I played professionally for quite a while. I kind of went to music school and started off by playing with some jazz greats like Maynard Ferguson, Dizzy Gillespie, some of those people, and played with some other groups like Blood, Sweat, and Tears and things like that. But as I got really involved in the equipment. I mean, I love gear, and I think that's what brought me into the music products industry, and then eventually leading me to Yamaha, where I'm fortunate enough to have the position of being in charge of not only acoustic drums but also electronic drums for Yamaha Corporation of America.
Very cool. No, and absolutely. And I guess having someone being able to, not just speak to, the talking sheet or the points, but you can actually sit down and say, here is why I feel it's better, and you can explain that thing. I mean, have you always been a fan of Yamaha? Have they, kind of in your experience, have you kind of seen an improvement over the years? Because digital equipment, I mean, it's been around for a little while, but every time we have Yamaha on, they talk about new technology, how they're making it better. Are digital equipment getting up to the level of traditional acoustic equipment?
Yeah, it's interesting. We kind of look at those two different animals a little bit, but as far as the playability goes, I mean, the electronic instruments, especially for drums, are really getting very good. I mean, I kind of look at acoustic guitars and electronic guitars. They're both guitars, but they're both different in the aspect they still have a little bit different feel, but they have different applications as well. I mean, if you said to me, Ben, if you said, hey, we're going to go sing campfire songs, I wouldn't probably bring a Marshall stack and an electric guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to bring my acoustic guitar. So with drums, the interesting fact, Ben, on this is that unlike guitars and keyboards that have had their electronic counterpart since back in the 50s, it's interesting, drummers didn't really get their electronic counterpart to the acoustic drum set until getting into the 90s.
Wow.
So one of the reasons why electronic drums, especially electronic drum sets, have been really popular over the last 20 years because it's kind of new for drummers to have that electronic counterpart that keyboard players and guitar players have had for years. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, and your listeners are probably thinking too, well, I remember seeing electronic drums in the 70s and 80s and, pads that look like stop signs and triangles and all those things like that. Well, those were pads and modules, but there was never really a complete electronic drum set that was functioning. There was really a playable instrument for drummers. And so that's been kind of in recent history that we've had the electronic drum set or the electronic drum kit. And with those advancements, it's really amazing, not only from a feel standpoint. We have what's called a DTX pad that's probably the closest representation that you can get to playing acoustic drum. So the feel is all there, that sensation you have, and so all your learned techniques that you learned on your acoustic drums will transfer easily to your electronic drums and vice versa. You're not playing a foreign surface. But also then from a sound quality standpoint. Earlier in the days, a lot of sounds were developed from white noise and pink noise and all those things, trying to make up drum sounds and trying to think, I think that sounds like a snare drum. I'm not sure, but it kind of does. To actual samples of acoustic drums, and not only single samples, but in our world we do multi-sampling. So there's a lot of different samples, a lot of different partials that make up one sample. So when you actually play the drum pad and you play with whether it's from soft to loud, you get that same expression sound-wise that you would on the acoustic drum. So you hear all those nuances as you play. You dig into the drum and you start to play with more expressiveness. You actually get that response back as well sonically. So you get the feel that's there, and you also get the sound that's there. So it's really amazing. You'd be amazed, Ben, at how many recordings probably you and your listeners hear on the radio today that are done with electronic drum sets.
Right,
really
and I was actually going to get into that because there are obviously different applications. You mentioned the campfire example, where obviously there'll always be a place for just acoustic equipment, and that that will do. But I mean, electronic drums, they're obviously going to have maybe in a studio setting, maybe in a live performance, where obviously basic acoustic drums wouldn't be able to be heard in, let's say, a large arena. I mean, what are you finding, musicians are really using electronic drums over, kind of like you said, traditional drums that they've probably learned on?
Correct. And, I think the application, I think that's where you're going to. Some of the things that electronic drums offer, like you were saying, but you were talking about earlier, you were just talking about the practicing aspect.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that if you're living in an environment, whether, you're living in an apartment or you have noise restrictions, to be able to have an electronic drum set and put on headphones and play, until your eyes bleed and whatever else you want to do, no one else can hear you, is a really great thing for anyone that wants to get involved with drums and drumming. Even, if you've got, a son or daughter that wants to learn how to play drums, you don't have to listen to them struggle to learn how to play drums. You can actually put them on a set of headphones, and not only are the advantages there for just having, the quiet application of a drum set, but also the learning aspects. The fact that the sound modules that we have at Yamaha, the like I mentioned, the realistic performance that's there, the expressiveness that's there, but also just the myriad of sounds that you have to choose from that keep drummers of all ages engaged to keep playing. And then also the aspect, at Yamaha, we also put training exercises in our modules. So again, from a practice standpoint, you can call up some of the exercises that help develop your sense of timing. For example, things like you play along with a metronome, and if you don't play in time, you won't hear any note sound, which I'm sure everyone would love to have
right.
every drummer play that way anyway. But it's really neat. We have these great training exercises that really build up your training skills, as well as play-along songs that are in the module that you can play along with, or take your outside audio device, like your iPhone or your MP3 player or anything, plug it into the mixed input of the module. So then through your headphones, you actually hear your outside music source and your drum sound all at the same time, mixed in right into your headphones. So just a wealth of great educational and practice applications that are just right from that part.
Right. No, it really does sound like you're turning one of these most basic music equipment pieces into a smart device. And that's something that we're seeing a lot in a lot of different spaces. So, with of course, with that in mind, you mentioned back in the 70s, you had these kind of pads which I admit, that was about 20 years before my time, but if I had to guess, it was kind of like a keyboard where you strike a key and it plays a sound, and that was electronic drums, when they first started coming out back in the 70s. There was no nuance. It was touch a pad on and off, and that was your sound. How has the technology that you've developed, because I know that Yamaha does, they don't kind of sit around and say, oh yeah, we have that licked. They do develop, they try to get that truest, authentic, warmest feeling that they can with their digital equipment. How has it kind of developed, since the 90s, since the 70s, into, a playable device and not just kind of switches on sticks?
Yeah, and good point, because, it really was, it was very simplistic earlier on. But as I was mentioning about the different, when you actually play a sound, the expressiveness, we take, for example, we'll take an acoustic snare drum to sample that for one of the libraries of sounds that we'll have, and we'll play it at all these different volume levels. We'll record it at different volume levels for all the different expressiveness, and then combine all those little partials of sounds into one sound. So when you play harder or softer, you get all that expressiveness, and then you combine things, with the DSP processing that Yamaha is really known for, digital signal processing. Where we can take a sound like that and then we can add reverb and doing all these different sound characteristics through our sound design to really create that sound. It's just a very realistic sound because, it really is a sampled sound anyway, but just the expressiveness. And I think that's from the musician standpoint, that's when it really takes hold. Because when you're really playing and you almost forget you're playing, this drum pad that's a triggering surface, and it starts to feel really like you're playing the actual instrument. It gives you that realism, that real feel, and that you've got there, and just all the expressiveness that you're getting from the instrument. The other thing too that we do, again, typical Yamaha, going above and beyond that. Things like, for example, the modules that we have USB out, and we can do a lot of especially professional musicians will use the drum set and connect to their computers. And what they'll do is, to access even more sounds, they'll use their VST libraries, and they'll use these other sound libraries they have in their computer, and they'll connect their drum set right to their computer and access sounds that way. Not only playing more sounds, but also for recording. It makes an excellent, whether it's audio right from the sound module, or you're just using it as a controller to record into your computer. That's a really fantastic recording medium right there. So kind of like, again, just even from recording audio, Just like the keyboard player and guitar players do, you can plug right into the computer, right into your digital interface to go into your computer. You just plug right in and start playing. You've got access to all these great sounds, and you're playing a drum set. For all you know, you're playing a drum set like you naturally would be playing, but you're actually recording or capturing, whether it's MIDI information or it's audio information, right into your computer. So that's really what's given drummers that ability then to kind of join with the keyboard players and guitar players and everybody else that's got access to their computers. Now they're joining the whole electronic world with their computers too.
And I'm sure it also reduces kind of the, it kind of lowers the floor on, I'm sure, starting out musicians, new musicians that, hey, you don't have to rent out a giant studio to, record your drums in isolation and blah, blah, blah. You just hook them up to your computer and you can combine the tracks at a later date. So, no, that's, of course, very, very important. And, I guess those are some of the advantages, but, I mean, Yamaha is, they are in this market, but they're not the only ones in this market. There's there's quite a few other instrument companies that kind of do electronic drums and things like this. I mean, where does Yamaha kind of stand out? Do they stand out with their history? Do they stand out with their technology? I mean, how does Yamaha separate themselves in this market?
Ben, that's a good question. One of the things is the fact that for Yamaha, if you just look at our electronic drums, we're steeped in our history for acoustic drums. As a matter of fact, it's Yamaha Acoustic Drums' 50th anniversary. We've been making acoustic drums for 50 years now. And with that knowledge of acoustic drums and hardware and all the things that make up our acoustic drum instruments, that knowledge, that drum knowledge, combined with the technology that Yamaha has, that's where the DTX electronic drum products really excel. Because it's our vast and deep knowledge of acoustic drums, along with our technology, that gives us that. And for example, a couple things that separate us, besides that a feel of our DTX pad, it's a really outstanding feeling drum pad. It's got things like, for example, it has 3 zones to trigger, so you can trigger more than just one sound on it. Another thing that we've done is to also help, because there's so many great features in our sound modules, and a lot of people, sometimes it might be difficult to get to because it's a smaller display, or some people might be a little intimidated about trying to access all the different features in there. What we did is we're the only company that actually has apps for our modules. So if you have any of our Yamaha electronic drum sets, our DTX drum sets, there's an app, a free app that you can download that you can connect. And they're all iOS apps, except for one of them. We have one that's an Android for our DTX 400, which is our entry-level set. But the apps are a wonderful addition for us.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to get into the apps a little bit later, because you've already mentioned some use cases, but obviously things like training and learning new songs, it can also be intimidating, because the internet does provide such a wealth of information, and having that little bit of a guide saying here's a good place to start can be invaluable, especially nowadays. So actually, let's talk about we're going to talk about the DTX apps in just a moment, but let's talk about the different types of products that come in the DTX line. You mentioned there was a 400, and I think it was a 526, or I'm sure you're going to correct me, but we're kind of poking around on your website now. If you're watching the video portion, you can see that. But you have, of course, drum kits and modules and pads and things like this. So talk about some of the more important products in your digital drum lineup.
Yeah, and we do have just like we have a full lineup of acoustic drum products, we also have a full lineup of electronic drum products as well. As you mentioned, we have the DTX 400, which also is the quietest drum set that we make. One of the interesting things about the DTX 400 drum set that we have, it's got a beaterless kick drum pedal. And what I mean by that, there's not a bass drum pad with a bass drum beater, which is on your right foot, pounding on that pad, which can generate a lot of noise. Anyone that's seen that and been around a drum set, electronic drum sets might be quiet, but when that bass drum beater, you're pounding on that thing, it can vibrate through the floors and ceilings and walls, and that has a beaterless kick, so it's super quiet. So we have something like that.
Well, actually, Stephen, if you just hold on for just a moment, we actually can play. Hey, you know, I wonder if we'll ever get to talk to this mysterious Steve Fisher. But we're actually going to play the the video of you actually demonstrating the DTX 400 for everyone. So just one moment, and here we go.
Sure.
And there you go. I mean, and you know, we just saw the video there of you playing it, and obviously this kit takes up a fraction of the space that a full drum set would. But I mean, the sounds were very, very well reproduced.
You're right, and that, like I said, they're samples of actual drums, whether it's drums, percussion, and again, you can go further and it access sound effects and all those great things you can do, you can access. So just a great wealth of sounds, and again, just a lot of fun to play, if anything. Yeah.
So so that's the DTX 400 series. There's a 450, if I wasn't mistaken, and these are, and they come with a lot of different features. So a step up from that, the 502. What's the difference between 400 and 502?
Yeah, the 502 series is our next level up, and that's where we start to combine. You'll see some of those models that are in that 502 series range. They all use what we call the 502 because it actually is using a module called the DTX 502. There's a few different pad configurations that you can choose within that lineup. And that's where you start to see the introduction of the DTX pad, that white pad that's there. Is a cellular silicone pad that we do the special treatment to, where we put air bubbles in it to give it a different feel, a great feel actually. So it's really a very well engineered, very uniquely engineered feel for that. The benefits that gives you a step up. There's actually more sounds that are in the 502 module, a wider variety of sounds. There's also the fact that you can layer sounds, and that's a neat thing that is. Very few companies have that, and we have that. You can get some really great combinations by layering sounds. Plus, when you get to that module, you have the benefit of sample import, which basically means you can import your own sounds in that module and play them from the pads. And that's really a lot of fun. I mean, if you want to go sample a trash can or do whatever you want to do, you can take any of those sounds you got, and you can put them right in your module, and you can play them from the pad. So that's a big advantage that Yamaha has in that regard, where you also have sample import for that module.
Right.
There's also, again, just you can make a bigger configuration, a bigger setup with that module, and again, the sound layering and the sample import. Getting more expanded too, there's more training functions also in the DTX 502 as well. It's a little more in-depth. Some more editing that you can do, and just more variety there.
Yeah, and there are a number of configurations, but I can see that you do start to introduce those little the white drum pads, the silicone drum pads, as you said. But of course, there's two levels above that, and each one is getting, I guess, progressively kind of more advanced, I mean, in its technology. So what about the DTX 700, the one right above that?
Yeah, as we move up a little bit further in the 700 series, kind of like we move from the 4 to the 500, 502 series, moving on, you can see the pads are a little bit larger. With that, there's also some more capability in regards to the pads as well. That's we get into the 3-zone pads. But the neat thing that Yamaha also has is we have our 3-zone cymbals too. So like, for example, when you're playing the ride cymbal, and you can play not only the bell but the bow, but also the edge. So again, all that realism, all the things when you all your learned techniques for playing drums, you've learned that stuff. You want to apply those when you sit down to electronic drum set, and you can easily play all those and get all that expressiveness out when you play that. So the 700 series, what happens also is sonically as you move up too, the sounds become more refined. There's also more expressiveness because the module does have more memory in it. The memory is capable of actually holding more data, more content, and obviously those individual sound samples can be larger and have a lot more detail to them, and a lot more expressiveness.
So, and that actually kind of answers my next question a little bit. And obviously you go from one to the next, and a lot of the aspects of the hardware do get improved. Including the module that you keep talking about. But let's say someone starts out with the DTX 400, and then they wanted to add to it, improve to it. I know that the module is obviously going to be different from from series to series, but could you take elements from, let's say, the 400 series, you buy a brand new 500 series, and you decide that you want to bring over the cymbals or some of the drum pads? Like, are all these parts interchangeable, or are they strictly for each series?
It's a really great question, Ben. The 400 series really pretty much is self-contained, just a one unit. And we do that for just as far as for economics go. Mm-hmm. So really is a unit. But when you get to the 502 series that we were talking about, from there on up, you can interchange parts and pads. You can combine the smaller cymbal with the larger, so if you have existing components and you want to, let's say you buy even if you bought a 502 series drum set, and you wanted to add the 700 series module, you can just add the module. So all those parts, once you get to the 502 series, you can mix and match all you want to. So everything is compatible that way. So you can make some really unique configurations that way.
Right.
Of course, as you do move up from the 502 to the 700 series, and then of course the 900 series at the top, there's actually the availability for expansion. There's more pad inputs available. So you can actually make bigger configurations as well. But to your point, the 400 series is pretty much self-contained. That's what it is.
Okay.
The DTX 450, you can add one more cymbal to it. But when you start to get the 502 and up, that's when you can start interchanging all the DTX accessories and components wherever you want to.
Right. No, that perfectly makes sense, and very, very good, because obviously you don't want to go from the 500 to the 700, and you have to throw away all of your good gear. Being able to add to it, or being able to salvage some of those parts, definitely good. So, but like you mentioned, the 900 series, this is the top of the line for you, and really looking at the equipment here, I mean, it does seem to just kind of come with a lot more. Where things were maybe just didn't have some of the parts, this one seems to have everything, and then the biggest module yet. I mean, so what does the 900 really have to offer?
Yeah, again, it's just more of everything is what we're talking about. Again, sound quality is really exceptional in this piece. Again, there's a lot more memory that's in the module to be able to have more data that's in there, more of the sound data. So not only the sounds are more expressive and have a lot more detail, but there's just more of it. Just from a player standpoint, it's very expressive. All those nuances and all those details that are in there that you'd normally play on an acoustic drum set, you're going to hear those when you play this drum set. If you haven't played one, it's amazing. If any drummer out there has never played one of these, they really have to get their hands on this. It's really exceptional what you can do with it. Again, more pad inputs. You can create also a larger drum set, but just even with the module itself, the fact that it does sample import, it also does its own sampling, so you can record yourself and sample that. So it actually has sampling, onboard sampling. So let's say, remember the example I told you about recording, you hitting a trash can lid or something. You can actually record that and have that ready to go right in the DTX 900 itself.
Right.
So the effects that are also in there are really exceptional. So great effects with this reverbs, delay, chorus, flangers, phasers. There's a lot of different things in that module that just let you be extremely creative and explore doing a lot of different things. And that's, I think, one of the beauties, especially when you get to the DTX 900. It's almost limitless, the things you can do. And it'll also start to take you to places you probably never thought you'd go before because of that sound expression, because of what you can do sonically, tuning the drums, adding things, effects, adding samples in. It just, next thing you know, you've just got just this musical instrument that just goes beyond your wildest imagination.
Right.
Just really inspires your creativity.
Yeah, and speaking of limits here, just real quick, and by the way, Stephen, would you mind staying over for a couple minutes so we can talk about some of the other products with the lineup?
Sure, no worries.
Perfect. Oh, perfect. But just real quick, I mean, in like the next 30 seconds or so, if someone wanted to go completely bananas and wanted to build one of those, giant Arena 360 drum sets, how many pads can you kind of put on, let's say, the DTX 900? What's kind of the upper limit?
You could put up to 15 pads on that drum set. So you can really get a lot. Yes.
Yeah, 15, definitely. So, all right, and everyone, once again, we're the music means we have to take a break. We'll be right back with Mr. Stephen Fisher. He is the product marketing manager for the Acoustic and DTX drum. And yeah, we're in the middle of it. When we come back, we'll be talking about the the smartphone apps and just what they can do, what they do for you, and how they fit into drums. Because hey, it wouldn't be a technology show if there wasn't an app for that. So everyone, we'll be right back. More Computer America just after this.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. We are 31 minutes past the hour as we continue on here with Mr. Stephen Fisher of Yamaha and the Yamaha Corporation of America. And we are talking all about the DTX drum set and the DTX lineup of products because, these things are very, very advanced, when it comes to technology, and love talking about this kind of stuff. So, Stephen, the hardware is, I think, for a lot of drummers going to be pretty self-explanatory. That's, other than the fact that they are flat instead of bulky, they are, kind of, they're going to be very, very similar, I think, to a traditional drum set. People are not going to be confused by that. But something that I think they won't be used to is indeed that app that you mentioned a number of times. And, when you think about drums, you think, well, drums should be self-contained. Drums should be self-explanatory. Why an app, and what does the app do?
Sure, great question. And again, Yamaha is the only company that has apps, especially for the electronic drum products. It's really born from, we want people to access the instrument. And one of the things that traditionally has happened with electronic drum sets is there sometimes can be a little bit difficult to operate. Many times the sound module itself has a smaller screen, and typical Yamaha, we pack a lot of features in our products, so there's a lot to get into a little screen, and it's what we want to do is make it more accessible for people and also make it easier. So that was really born from that, is how do we get people to access the wonderful features we put in the module? How do we get them to do that? And also make the whole thing less intimidating. So some people, look at it and they think, well, boy, I'm not quite sure how to move around this. There's some buttons. Well, if you can operate an app, you can operate the DTX module. And it doesn't matter if it's the 400, the 502, or the 700, or our multi-12 multi-pad. So that's the reason for having that, for having the apps. And why not? Because so many people have an iPad, iPhone, any smartphone device like that. They've already have that. And, when we tell customers, whether young or old, when they talk about the user, the ability to access it and have fun with it, saying, well, if you know how to run an app, you can pretty much run this module. A lot of times, even when I run the modules these days, the only time I put my hand on the module is to turn it off and turn it on. So the app is just a wonderful way to access features, and it's very quick, easy, and it's also very intuitive.
Right, and let's talk real quick about kind of how they connect, because of course Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and what are there in-app purchases for this kind of thing? Can other artists kind of upload their own sounds, their own music for others, for others to download, share, sell, that kind of thing? I mean, where does Yamaha kind of see the app? Is it kind of like a store, or is it simply a remote control for your drum kit?
It's primarily a remote control, and where we've started things off with the apps. So it's a really easy editor interface that you can use and see obviously a lot of feedback you get off your iPhone or iPad to do a lot of the editing functions, whether it's tuning a drum or layering sounds or adding reverb, anything like that. But it also adds the functionality of the fact that, as I was mentioning about being able to do sample import and load your own sounds in the module, from the app you have access to, if you've got access to your Dropbox, I could send you, Ben, if you said to me, hey, Steve, I got these really cool snare drum samples I'd like to send you, you can send to me via Dropbox, and when I'm in the app, I can actually take and open up my Dropbox and then load that right into the module.
That's cool.
It's simple. It's connecting. It's really basically we have at Yamaha we have a cable called the IUX1, but really you can use a camera connection kit. An Apple camera connection kit works just fine too. So you're really just going from Lightning down to USB for the module. So easy connection, one cable, but again, giving you that extra access to not only editing the sounds, but if I want to import sounds, I can go right to my Dropbox, right to my app, and load those sounds right into the module right from there. So it's quick and easy.
Yeah, and for a lot of musicians, they use many types of software. There's software for music editing and things like that that they are comfortable with. How friendly does Yamaha play with let's say some of the Adobe products or other are the file formats proprietary, so you have to use everything Yamaha, or or do you play nicely with some of the other music editing software?
Oh yeah, well, are you talking for the samples that you would load in, Ben? I'm
yes.
sorry.
For the samples that you load in, and also the samples that you can pull out thanks to being able to plug it into your computer and record.
Oh yeah, well, as far as you pretty much load WAV files is what you're going to do, and it also will be AIF files as well. You can load into the module. So that's a simple format. It's not a Yamaha proprietary format for doing any of that. And another thing too, I want to add to the fact with the app is that it also gives you access to our website, which is called YamahaDTX.com. And using the app, you have it takes you to a special section of that YamahaDTX.com website to give you custom drum sets you can download right into your module. They're already done. So if you want access to a lot more cool drum kits to try, whether it's a rock kit or a funk kit or a jazz kit or crazy kit, industrial sound effects, you can access all those kits that are already there, and they also have samples with them as well. So again, it gives you more access to more sounds and more data.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not the biggest musically inclined one in the household. That's actually Craig's department, and he has a Yamaha keyboard. And I see him all the time switching from jazz to swing to funk, on his keyboard as he plays. And it's great just to have a normal keyboard, but being able to switch those presets, I mean, he has such a better range of music. With those different presets. So great to hear that you've brought those over to, obviously the drums as well. So speaking to the different kinds of apps as well, I mean, I see here, again, everyone, we're going to have links to this in the show notes, but you have the DTX 400 drum lesson app. And, this is for iPhone and iPad. But, I mean, are the drum lessons, because obviously, the feeling that you've conveyed is that the 400 is your entry level. If someone is interested in playing drums and you don't want to hear them playing drums for the first time, jump into the 400, get started. Here's a learning app. Is the 400 learning app, going to be okay for like the 502s, or is it just exclusive to the 400 series?
No, great question. It is for the 400 in regards to part of that app, the DTX 400 Lessons app, talks about how to set up and how to play the DTX 400. But the lessons part of it is really for any of our drum sets, for anybody really. It's knowing how to hold drumsticks and how do you play the snare drum and how do you play certain grooves. Let's start to play a simple rock beat, things like that. So it's really a great app for just learning how to play drums, outside of just a few things that are specific to the DTX 400.
I gotcha. Now, and makes perfect sense. So, like I said, though, lots of iPad, lots of iOS. Obviously, Apple has a huge emphasis, or at least they have a huge following for musicians. They definitely like their iMacs. They definitely like their GarageBand, things like that. But you also have, I think you mentioned one Android. So, talk about the iOS, what's available for iOS and what's available for Android.
Yes, actually, all the apps we have are iOS. We have one, the DTX 400 Touch app. The editor app is an Android app, and we're looking at obviously expanding that for Android users. So that's right now the DTX 400 Touch app. That editor app is the only one right now we have for Android, but we'll probably see that expanding too.
Right, but like I said, I mean, musicians, they do have their affinity for Apple products, so I can see obviously going to the bulk of your community first with iOS. So, makes perfect sense. And I mean, is there any 99 cents to download, $5.99, or do they kind of get a free pass if they have one of your drum kits? I mean, how much do you pay for these apps?
Well, the apps are free, and I think one of the neat things about it is if you want to get a sense of what the module is like, what you can do is download any of the apps and check them out. It kind of gives you a glimpse into all the features that the module has. So if you're thinking about, wonder what the DTX 502 module has in it, if you download the app, which is a free download, you can actually take a look and see all the editing functions it does, which obviously is telling you what that 502 module is actually capable of. So that's kind of the neat thing is we have a lot of users who want to know more about the module and more what it does. One of the things you can do is just download the free app and then go look at everything that app does and go, wow, that's great. I didn't know the module had all those capabilities. You can see all the functions and what it does, and of course, any user, of course, you can download it and with the connection, the Apple connection kit, or the Yamaha IOX1 cable, you can connect it, and away you go. You just start, using your module. Another benefit to the apps too that I can mention quickly, Ben, is that the fact that if there's any updates on the module, it will prompt you and actually update the module as well. So if there's any updates that are going on, once you open up the app, it'll say, hey, there's a new update, and it will actually update the firmware in your module. So that's a great benefit. The other benefit too that I want to mention to the apps too is I mentioned it does do more functions, and one of the things it does, we have a product called the DTX Multi-12. And that's an exceptional product. It's really for anybody. It's a pad that's got 12 pads on it, and it's filled full of over almost 1,300 drum percussion, world percussion, sound effects, all those sounds. It's a really fantastic product. And you can play it by itself. You can make a small drum set out of it. You can add it to a percussion setup. Play with your hand sticks or your fingers even. You can play some really articulate hand percussion things. That app, it's got so much information, you have to use an iPad for that. But it gives you added ability to, if you want to trigger loops and things, it'll actually let you, from playing any of the 12 pads, you can actually access any song that's in your iTunes library. So you can trigger anything that's on your iPad, you can trigger from those pads on the DTX Multi-12. Yeah. And that's a great benefit. Some guys have super long loops, and it takes a lot of memory. And instead of trying to cram that in the module, you actually just let your iPad do all the work. So you can trigger anything from the pads. You can trigger your iTunes library. So really cool, adding new functions to things and really expanding what you can do musically.
Yeah, I mean, of course, whenever I see products like this, it's burned in my brain that I've seen musicians like Jonathan Colton use these things, but I've also seen, I think my favorite is, of course, Reggie Watson, the things he can do with loops and touchpads and things like that. I mean, it's just really, really cool. The kind of music you can make that would otherwise really be impossible. So, very, very cool that you have that. So, let's talk about real quick the reception you've been getting, because obviously musicians, there is sometimes I don't think it's as bad as everyone portrays it to be, but sometimes there's an old blood. There's that's not the way drums are meant to be. No way a digital drum or anything like that could ever truly be an acoustic drum sound. I mean, how has the reception been from the music community that you found for things like putting apps in drums and making them electronic and things like that?
Well, I think the overwhelming response has been extremely positive, simply because just especially from a novice standpoint, to be able to operate the module just using an app on your iPhone or your iPad is a welcome response from everybody, especially when you show it to a new user of a product saying, here's how easy it is to use. They light up. They think, well, this is easy. If they look at a module and see some buttons and see a smaller display, they know that it's going to take a little bit getting used to. But as soon as they see the app, there's their comfort zone. I can run an app and I can see all the information that's right there, and it's easy to access. And so it's very intuitive in that regard. What's interesting, though, is that on the other side of the spectrum, from the novice, we have a myriad of great artists that play Yamaha Acoustic and DTX drums, and a lot of them use that multi-12 that we were talking about. A lot of them like to add that to their acoustic kit to trigger loops and play loops, and also trigger, actually different topic, but they trigger their acoustic drums with it too. They'll put these electronic devices, these pickups on their acoustic snare and acoustic kick drum, which triggers the sounds inside the module. The reason why they're doing this is they're trying to copy and they want to mimic the sounds that are on the record when they're playing for a famous artist.
Right.
But so point being is they use the multi-12 a lot. Our top professional guys use this. It's a workhorse for them. And one of the things, once they saw the app, they were just delighted, because these guys, they're under pressure. They're dealing with our top artists. They're playing with anywhere from, we have one of our artists, Chris Johnson, plays with Lady Gaga. And, we've got some top-name guys. And when these guys are working, they need stuff to happen now. So for them to have access to the app, and if they need to make a change in their recording or they're playing live or anything like that, for them to be able to access that app and get that information quickly and intuitively and make those changes they need to do, it's gold to them. I mean, they can't say enough great things about how the app has changed their life with how they work with something, for example, like the multi-pad, that gets them what they need to do and gets it done quickly and easily.
And that does make a lot of sense, because I never really thought of that aspect of the music industry. It's that it's great to be a well-trained drummer. It's great to be able to play your drums very, very professionally, or your guitar or whatever, your keyboard, your piano. But I guess for the upper the upper crust of the musicians, I mean, having these tools, like, you didn't have these tools before, so you really didn't need to use them. But now that I think everyone has access to them, either through you or through other types of products, like, I can see artists now kind of demanding, or at least audiences demanding that of their artists, that hey, you can play two sets of drums at the same time, and that's kind of what we expect of you now. So no, that's a very interesting kind of way to put it. So, but hey, listen, Stephen, we've kept you for a little bit longer than we promised. One last question for you, and one last question for Yamaha, and that is, what is the future of drums? Is the future all digital? Is the future more apps? I mean, where is Yamaha kind of heading with these drums?
That's a great question. I do know one thing, Ben, that I think obviously with anything electronic, whether it's electric guitar, electric piano, anything, I think obviously the acoustic counterpart's going to live forever as well. Because like I said, I think they both have their applications. There is a lot of crossover, but for me, the thing that excites me about Yamaha, and that's what's very exciting for me with being Yamaha drums, is that drums are also a very unique instrument. The piano is the piano for the most part. There's 88 keys, and there's some confinements that are just there. Mm-hmm. Drums have been evolving for the last 100 years. I mean, the drum set came about 100 years ago, and it's been nothing but changing ever since. Drummers are always looking for new sounds and new setups and new things to, expanding their sound palette. For what I see for Yamaha has the vast and deep resources, not only in acoustic drums, but also DSP, digital signal processing, hardware, sound reinforcement, and all the other technologies. That putting those together, that's where I'm really excited about the future of drums, because Yamaha is really the only company that's uniquely positioned to take drums and drumming to that next level. So I think, to answer your question in a nutshell, is I think that you're going to see a lot of these combinations because of the nature of drums, the nature of the instrument, about it always evolving and changing, and drummers always looking for new sounds and new things to do with them and new applications, that I think there's this wonderful combination of acoustic and electronic. It's going to have this wonderful blend together. Right now, they're still a little bifurcated. There's some hybrid sets going on, but I think as the future rolls on, you see a lot more of this combination between the two, and that's what excites me about Yamaha, is because we're on the forefront of all those technologies.
Absolutely. And, of course, Yamaha, they are on the forefront of not just drums, but also keyboards, pianos, and things like that. So, I mean, and I really do believe that there's a lot of bleed over, that, whenever you come up with a new type of technology for, let's say, your pianos, there is some carryover to your drums. So there's a lot of really, really smart people over at Yamaha. I can say that for certain. And Stephen, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on the show to talk about some of the advancements, because, hey, this has been, of course, Computer America technology, but I think this is, one of the highest tech things that we've had on, in the past little while. So, Stephen, thank you so much for joining us. And if people want to find out more, where should they go?
They can go to YamahaDrums.com to learn more about all our Yamaha drum products.
Very, very simple. And of course, we'll have a link to that in our show notes. So, Stephen, please, next time you have a new kit, next time you have a new product, feel free to join us back on Computer America. This was a lot of fun.
Ben, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. And yeah, we'll definitely be seeing you later. So, so in the meantime, everyone, one last time, Yamaha and their drum kits, their DTX, check it out, everyone. And Stephen, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
All right, have a good one. Bye-bye. And there he goes. So, everyone, once again, Yamaha, check them out. They have a lot of drums. And if you were watching the video portion, we were kind of poking around, just checking out some of their, different, of course, videos that they have on. And, they have a lot of really cool, see, like that. They have a lot of cool demonstrations of what you can do with their technology. So, yep, hopefully we don't get, taken down for playing this. But at the same time, it's just really, really cool what you can do with these drums. So there you have it. And, let's switch gears here. And before we go much further, let's see. Let's pull this up. We have a message from one of our sponsors. And that sponsor is, of course, ZipRecruiter. So ZipRecruiter, they are a here we go. They are a recruiting service, and hey, everyone, are you hiring? Well, do you know where to post your job to find the best candidates? And, well, with ZipRecruiter, you can post your job to over 100 plus job sites with just a single click. And then their powerful technology efficiently matches the right people to your job better than anyone else. And that's why ZipRecruiter is different for them, where unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you, it finds them. In fact, over 80% of the jobs posted to ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate in just 24 hours. That's quick. So, no juggling emails or calls to your office. Simply screen, rate, and manage candidates all in one place with ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use dashboard. And now, for our listeners, you can check this out by going to ZipRecruiter.com/free trial, and you can post a job to their job site in minutes. And hey, you'll be off to the races. Once again, that was ZipRecruiter.com/free trial. Go give it a try, and you may just find that, you may just fill that position quickly, easily, and again, thanks to ZipRecruiter. All right, everyone. So we are now running a little short. I know that we had Yamaha on a little bit longer than we were supposed to, but that's okay. Definitely enjoyed those interviews. But there are a few different stories that I really wanted to get to. And let's do, how about this one? This one is sufficiently nerdy, sufficiently geeky. And you may remember a product called Google Glass. That was a, oh wait, by the way, computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. There we go. All right, so Google Glass back from the dead, and it has, as this Engadget article says, a clearer vision. So we'll try to speed through this one, but at the end of the day, what you need to know is that Google Glass, that's right, that closed beta, augmented reality hardware set that came out years ago, well, they're back with a vengeance. And they said that Alphabet X, Google's moonshot branch, has unveiled a reboot of the original eyeglass wearable called Glass Enterprise Edition, obviously aiming for that business application. And as the name suggests, it's not aimed at the public at all, despite its many foibles. Glass turned out to be very useful for workers, so the new version targets businesses to help workers do their job better. Saying that in early 2015, Google shuttered their Google Glass site, thanking users for exploring with us, and the journey doesn't end here. Where for everyone who did not get a chance to, for $1,500, you were able to buy into the beta and you were able to try this technology. I mean, it was fun, and we heard a lot of great things about it. It was also quite off-putting in a public setting. So I think another thing that led to this was that, hey, people just didn't like cameras on people's faces. It made them very uncomfortable. But in a business setting, you have no sense of privacy, so not as big of a deal. So here we have it. With glass, AGCO managed to reduce production times by 25%. And that's one of the companies that Google is working with. And saying that they have also increased supply chain efficiency 15%, where it's also been a boon for healthcare professionals, reducing paperwork loads by over 20% and allowing doctors to spend 50% more time with patients. And with that success, Alphabet X has quietly been working on Glass Enterprise Edition with a design that's more comfortable and can withstand the rigors of a work environment. So a little more solid, and obviously we'll be able to display more information. And Google has also brought a raft of developers on board to build apps that take advantage of Glass's main advantages: the fact that it's hands-free, lightweight, and unobtrusive. Where DHL, for instance, uses a solution called Ubimax, there we go, with Glass to receive real-time instructions about where items have to be placed on carts with the help of visual aids. And again, for anyone out there who really can't imagine what Google Glass is, kind of brings to the table, it's that it's hands-free and it does augmented reality. And they show some examples here of, let's say, workers, if they want to, let's say, insert coded wire into designated terminal. That's one of the pictures and videos that they have here. Instead of having someone stand over you or having to read a manual back and forth, instead there would be kind of an instruction sheet that would tell you step by step how to, wire a terminal. And again, it saves you having a second person sitting there teaching you. It saves time and having to look at a paper manual and distracting yourself. It's just right there, overlaid on top of the task that you are doing. It's it's quite futuristic. So as for whether Glass will ever go on sale to the public again, don't count on it anytime soon. Saying that the consumer Glass team is still alive and kicking, so never say never. But the Enterprise Edition, now available to more businesses through our network of expert partners, and there's no word on the price. But hey, if it's more rigid, if it's better battery life, if it's better everything, you can bet that that $1,500 price mark, it's much higher than that, and it's going to be, very, very niche in its applications right now. But a consumer-facing product will come eventually. So let's see, we don't have time to do some of the other stories. So hey, everyone, if you want to go check out some of the other stories we have posted on Computer America, we have things like, of course, Netflix. They have reached a new high in subscribers, saying that they have added 5.2 million memberships, which was much higher than the expected 3.2 million during the last quarter. Saying that it has, and this was the financial results from last quarter, saying that they earned just $66 million on revenue of about $2.79 billion. So obviously they're spending a lot, but they're also making a lot, and hey, they're in the black, which is something a lot of companies cannot claim. So as for the reason why, well, there are now more Netflix subscribers outside the United States than within the United States.
90 seconds.
Netflix showing that viability. They are not simply just another US-based company, but they now have officially more subscribers outside the US than inside. They have just passed 100 million subscribers. It's crazy. All right, everyone. So, yep, that kind of story and more over at ComputerAmerica.com. I want to thank Yamaha one more time for joining us on the program. This was a lot of fun, and
60 seconds.
Be sure to join us tomorrow as we pull up the calendar and get Derek Shawnee, our computer graphics expert, and you can bet your bippy we're going to be talking all about graphics cards and AMD and Threadripper and the processors. And yeah, you know, if you want to know about hardware, hey, this is the show for you. So everyone, thank you so much for tuning into Computer America. I hope you all had a great time, and tune in tomorrow once again for Derek Shawnee. Everyone, have a great day, and see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Ten seconds.